All right, we'll get started. Thank you so much for all the work you have done for in taking care of patients during this pandemic. It's a difficult time, it's a challenging time, and if no one has thanked you, let me be the first one to thank you all, doctors, for helping out during this COVID pandemic. It really means a lot to the patients. So thank you again. All right, everyone. So I'm Dr. Agrawal from ed4medus.com. So I'm going to be discussing about ERAS CV, some tips and tricks, and thank you for all the questions that were sent. And I've tried to answer them in this video, and we'll kind of go over those questions. So I'll kind of start with my suggestions on how to fill out the ERAS CV. So some of the questions were, what is the format of a CV? And there is just one format. There's just ERAS CV format. You don't have to make another kind of a CV to submit to programs. So that's very easy to answer. Where should I start? Start right here. When should I start? So June 9th is when ERAS opens up, ERAS for 2021 and 22. So that's when you'll be able to purchase, the access to this ERAS application form, and you can certainly start filling right then and there. And of course, do your absolute best to have it all completed so that it's ready to go on the day ERAS opens, which is end of September. Email, make sure it's nothing funny or strange like looneytunes@gmail.com. Just make sure it's looking professional. Nothing much to fill out here. Okay, current mailing address, make sure that you have one USA address filled out. In the past, that was important because what would happen is, at the last moment, if someone is called for an interview and is not able to be there, then the program looks for applicants around where this program is located, and then tries to reach out to them saying, hey, could you drive in for an interview? But now that interviews are all virtual, I really don't think that matters. But it's kind of nice to give some kind of a USA address. Another reason is, so when the residency interview happens, it's nice to explain that, okay, I have family here or friends here living in this city, and I think it just makes your case stronger to be wanting to do residency training in that program. Permanent address, you can certainly fill that out. Okay, for international medical graduates, when you're looking at the kind of visa sponsorship, choose H-1B, J-1. It is, if you choose only H-1B, there's of course, if it's just a J-1 sponsoring program, or even if they're not interested in sponsoring H-1, they're just not going to invite you if you choose only H-1B. There are some rare programs that on paper say that they are J-1, but if you're a very strong candidate, if they really like you, they might be a bit flexible and even sponsor you an H-1B. So I would suggest just checking on both, unless you absolutely cannot do J-1. So just want to clarify that piece. This is all self-explanatory. Okay, keep going down. I don't talk much. Okay, now here's one error that's made, which I kind of came across in one of the applications I was reviewing. When you're talking at least about the different languages, absolutely English should be at least advanced or native, functionally native. Even if you feel that your English communication is not perfect, try to get it to advanced level. There are some explanations for what is advanced, what is native, but if you write anything like my English communication is good, fair, or basic, absolutely they're not going to call you for interview. That's the last thing that they want, someone who has poor communication skills. So certainly choose advanced or native, just one of those two, and any other language if you're very comfortable with, go ahead with choosing that language. All right, let's start with hobbies and interests. So this is a conversation starter. Programs are, I'm going to say, tired of looking at excellent applications, people with high scores, clinical experiences. So it's these kind of things like, okay, like a rounded application because of hobbies and interests and the personal statement. That's what now starts to differentiate you from other applicants. So do spend some time writing, showing interest in writing about hobbies. Like I said, it's a conversation starter. So many times in interviews, this is where it will start. Hey, I see that you're interested in a certain sports like tennis, or I see you're interested in playing music like the piano. So tell me more about it. And then, the interviewer is trying to make a connection with you and see if you're going to fit well into that program. And this is how they're trying to make that connection with you. So maximum 3 hobbies that you're very passionate about, something that you can talk with another person for 30 minutes, an hour, just because you know so much about it and you're very passionate about it. And give enough details. Don't just write reading books. At least write, like reading fiction, reading, like, I don't know, 18th century literature or whatever kind of literature is out there, Shakespeare literature, modern, whatever, give a little bit more description there, rather than just reading books, listening music, give some more details, if you're into karaoke or, listening to jazz music or whatnot, do provide some details. For example, I wrote here, some folks, are into yoga, so I practice hot yoga every week in a group. I'm also a certified yoga teacher and conduct beginner yoga classes for children. So that's very amazing. So now it tells a lot about your hobby and that you're interested in it. Plus, from a residency standpoint, this is how they know that you're not going to get burned out during residency training, which is very demanding, and that you have some extracurricular activity to keep yourself well-grounded, well-balanced. Anything like carpentry, music, sports. If you're talking about sports also, it's nice to say if you played at some kind of a level, local, national, regional level. It's nice to give a little bit of detail, maybe just 1 or 2, maybe maximum 3 sentences about each hobby, and max 3 hobbies. You can't have, I don't think you can have more than that you're very passionate about. So do spend some time. Don't just write stuff like, spending time with family, or if you're like very much into hiking, write about the best hike that you have taken, if a very interesting hike you may have had, and just show some more interest and details there. Okay, higher education, of course, this is not for med school. This is for like graduate studies like MPH, MHA, and so many other master degrees. So that's what you would have to put here. Medical school is again very self-explanatory. Make sure you choose the right medical school title. The different degrees are out there. Make sure, especially for international medical graduates, make sure the degree that you will have, either MBBS, MBBCH, or so forth, is accurately reflected here. Now, one thing that's not very clear is about residency training for, if people have done residency training in countries outside US, where does that go? I've tried to look up, this doctor of medicine here refers more to med school, at least from the, from the US point of view. So the only place where I feel you can talk about your residency training, also called postgraduate training in countries outside US, I think it would come under work experience. If it does, for example, I looked at all the degrees. I'm not seeing any like postgraduate degrees. I think there was like an MD, which might be okay. In some countries for postgraduate training, but in general, MD refers to med school training here in the US. So, but certainly do include that under work experience, which I'll come to, as we move forward. Membership and professional societies, again, it's optional, but there are, I just looked up, there are some free student memberships, like I looked at this thing called ACP student membership. All it needs is your med school should be in that list, in that directory of World Directory of Medical Schools. That's kind of the only requirement, and it's a free membership. But more than that, you have to like explain what you did as part of the membership when it comes to interviews. So just make sure you are active when you're joining some kind of a professional society or membership. Medical school awards, yes, do describe that. What was the title of the award, the month and the year that was awarded, and give an explanation, a one line, as to why you were given that award. Like, for example, Best Intern Award, awarded to Best Intern for exemplary clinical performance in the graduating class of 100 medical students. So now they know that, okay, you got an award because you're an excellent clinician. And that's rather than just writing Best Intern Award, now you're giving them some details and some very valid information for the program to look at. So that's all great information to include, but keep it short. Don't write, don't make it very lengthy. And that's why, it's saying, it describes how many medical students were in your class, and why you got the award. So do mention that detail. Other awards and accomplishments, I would highly suggest don't describe your awards before med school, like things you might have had in high school and so forth. One exception is if you got a scholarship for med school. I really think that's a very, very notable achievement. So I really feel that should come up here, even though it was awarded to you before med school. So I certainly think that can be included. Now, if you have taken other courses like Coursera and those online courses, certification, point of care ultrasound, all that goes here. And so any extracurricular awards and accomplishments are great. So make sure you fill that out. Okay, so now we're going to the experience. This one's if you have done prior residency in the US, so you can certainly fill that out if that applies to you. We're going to spend time here because this is the piece that's most important, and this is where the program directors will pay a lot of time looking at your US clinical experience. So one question was how to describe observerships versus electives. So that's what you have to do, write in the description. You have to kind of make that differentiation either in both in the position and in the description. And I'll kind of give you some words to describe. How to describe our clinical experience on ERAS, that's what's coming up next. Planning to apply to neuro, but my first rotation is hemonc, rest are neuro. Should I add this or skip it? I would certainly not suggest skipping any US clinical experience. So in this case, if someone did hemonc and then did neuro rotations, go ahead and still describe the hemonc clinical experience. There is just one ERAS application. You cannot have different ERAS CVs for different programs. And what I would suggest is in that situation, if the program director asks, why did you do a hemonc rotation and then now we're doing neuro, you can explain that this was if this was a maybe an international medical graduate, just explain that, this was the best you could get at that moment, and you really wanted to get started to learn about the US healthcare system, EMR, the team-based approach to medical care, and that the experience was still valid and you can still use it in neuroclinical residency training. So that's how you would justify why you did a hemonc rotation. So, but absolutely included. Don't skip on any US clinical experience. All right, experience type. Work experience, even observerships, interns, extern, medical student, postgraduate work, everything comes under work experience, whether you're paid or not. If it's especially if it's medical, like delivery of participation and delivery of clinical care, it comes under work experience. Name of clinic, hospital, self-explanatory. If there is some kind of a university affiliation, I think it's nice to say that. For example, you could say like like there's like something called Bay State Medical Center, um, you know, you could say affiliated with Tufts University or affiliated with UMass now, I believe. So it just gives a little bit. Okay, it's a it tells me that it's a community hospital, but that has an academic affiliation. It just kind of gives a nice idea about what the program is, especially if the program director is not aware of that hospital where you did this U.S. clinical experience. Position, intern, observer, whatever title is appropriate. Do write the specialty also, like observer, open bracket, internal medicine, close bracket, or internal medicine observer. A lot of times what is going to happen is the program director, they're just going to very quickly look at all these like headings. They're not going to have time to read each and every word of the description. So the more information you can provide here, the better it is, the easier it is for the program director to know right away what kind of experience you have, pursued. So these are, like I said, intern. So this is intern, whether, if for international medical graduates, of course, the last year of med school, that's called an internship. And so you can this is the place to include that. Observer, of course, when folks are coming to the US to gain US clinical experience, include that. Extern, if that's the right word. Medical students, when you're doing a medical student rotation, include that. Postgraduate work also comes up here. Now the supervisor, their name, their affiliation, do write their specialty. A lot of times, just a name is thrown out, but do write the specialty. It's kind of, sometimes, if, for example, this was a cardiology rotation, all these specialties are kind of a small community, so they would be very interested to see if they know this person, this supervisor whom you have mentioned. So do mention their specialty, especially if they have an academic affiliation. Do write about that. I think it just makes it look very professional. So do that. If they're like a private practice clinician, of course, you're not going to be able to do that. You don't need to say teaching, attending. You can, or attending physician, maybe you can say if you wish, but that's not needed. Certainly do write their specialty, and if they have an academic title, try to include it. Average hours per week. Make sure, it's not like super high. I think I saw one statement, for some reason, the person wrote like 120 hours per week. And I'm like, that's not possible. So just make sure you're not overdoing it. I think 40 hours per week, that's a very reasonable amount of clinical work done in a week. Okay, description. You have to keep it short. You have to keep it to the point. So 3 to 5 points max. Certainly don't go beyond that. Now, when I say points, you cannot do bullet points in ERAS. So you can, like, some people have done, like, they'll write a sentence, they'll leave a blank space, and then go to the second sentence, or second sentence. Give a space, and then a third sentence. Some people put a bit of a hyphen, or like 1, 2, 3. Those are some other ways of writing it. Or you can just, write it as a paragraph. You don't need to write it in perfect grammar. You have to you write stuff like, performed history and physical, documented this. You have to write in that kind of a language. When you're writing about clinical experience, do describe whether it was outpatient or inpatient, whether it was just the attending or attending and resident students. It just tells the program director that, okay, you have some exposure to how residency education, how the medical education system works. So it's nice to include that information. And of course, the activities, performed history and physical, if it's really hands-on. Documented progress notes in Epic EMR. Certainly describe your familiarity with EMR. EMR is everywhere. The more you can show that you are familiar with electronic medical record systems, I think the program really feels that, okay, this person is better prepared to start residency because everyone has to do their notes in EMR and so forth. Do write the name of the EMR, okay? Ordered medications, lab tests, radiological studies, if that's applicable to you. If you had a more, observer kind of a role, more passive role, you can say directly observed, participated in management of hospitalized patients in the medicine floor, trying to say that this was more of an inpatient setting. Besides that, talk something about if there was anything interesting, like presented review of a drug A in a condition B, or if you did a clinical case presentation. So do talk about that. If there is no structured way of doing it, you have to be proactive and seek out opportunities, or say, tell the attending or the rest of the group that, hey, I want to present a review on so-and-so topic just because we saw a case. Is that okay? And, so that's something, if you do that, it shows again that you like to take responsibility, take charge of your own learning. That's something you can include in your CV, and that's something that your letter writer will include in the letter of recommendation. So try to seek for those opportunities, because this is what makes your experience different from the US clinical experience of another applicant. You just want to show that you did more than just seeing patients. So try to do that. Participated in morning report, noon conference, if that's what you did. Patients you saw, some folks like to say, on average, I saw, I don't know, 10 patients a day, or 5, whatever, 6 to 10 patients a day, whatever number. It's kind of optional. Make sure you have that number if they ask you at the interview. But you can certainly add that also if you wish. You don't need to talk much about the attending. Some ERAS, I would say, I completed this observership at so-and-so hospital under the supervision of doctor. They're repeating the name of the physician. Dr. So-and-so is a cardiologist at this hospital. You don't need to say all that. It doesn't matter. We just need to know what was your experience. There was one ERAS CV I saw where that person talked about the timings, like I was there at 8 a.m., left at 4 p.m. That's all not really needed. Just the average hours per week is all that's needed. So I hope this was helpful. The clinical experience is where you have to, it's very key. And try to put as much information here in the positions and the supervisor, just so that, the program director can have a opportunity to review all that right away. Other two kinds of experience that you can choose in ERAS, that's volunteer experience and the research experience. I'm sorry, before that, reasons for leaving, just write completion of rotation. There's nothing more to write about that. Volunteer experience, again, whatever organization, volunteer, medical student, whoever was a supervisor, the name, their type, their degree, what department they were. You don't need to write the hospital name or organization because it will come up here. You can certainly write that. Again, if there is an academic title, I think it's nice to include that. I don't know how much space is allowed, but you can certainly do that. Now for volunteer, activities, you have to keep it much shorter, 1 to 2 sentences max. Just don't go beyond it. No one is going to have time to read it. And use action words if you can, like led, organized, conducted if possible. Describe your role. Like this is from one ERAS CV. Of course, I've changed the details, but organized a health education initiative on menstrual hygiene, contraception, targeting adults in a rural community in so and so village or town. I assisted in insertion of IOD in 20 of the 70 women. So kind of telling a little bit more of the outcome. Efforts of my team were greatly appreciated by village leaders. That's it. That's the end of that experience that you've described. No, don't add anything more than that. Research, so of course, I didn't have space to talk about a research description, but if you want to describe a research experience, max 2 to 3 sentences. Don't go beyond that. People are just going to skip it. No one has time to read beyond that. talk about your research role. If you look at journals, they'll kind of have these descriptions, whether you were involved in data curation, formal analysis, investigation, writing, original data review, editing, preparation. So what exactly was your role in that study? Um, you have to certainly describe that. Now, sometimes what happens is, as part of your rotation, especially for folks in international medical graduates when they're doing community medicine, those kind of rotations, you may be asked to do something that ends up looking like a research study, but that's actually not research. That is kind of a part of your rotation and that was assigned to you. So that's not really research experience. So don't include that under research experience. This is something that you're kind of doing in a more active way and a more like you're taking charge of doing the research and getting it completed. So in short, describe your role in conducting the research, investigation, experiment, data evidence collection. And the reason why they ask for a description of the research experiences to look for if you may have funding. If you do have, describe it. If not, that's okay. And so talk about your role, talk about any funding, and what was the status of the research. Abstract titled so-and-so has been submitted to ACP. So what's the outcome of that research experience is how you will end the description of that research experience. Okay, just a few more things and then we should be done. Was your medical education training extended or interrupted? You have to be very careful if you have to choose yes, because what happens is I did see one application where so this was again with about an international medical graduate whose date of graduation was delayed by about 3 months because she took some time to come to the US to do a rotation. And then what happened is, but she highlighted this saying that she chose yes, that my medical education was extended. But what happens, you shouldn't really do that. You should only do choose medical training extended. The concern is that the program directors, whenever they see that your medical education was extended or interrupted, the first thing that they worry about is, was there some kind of a personal problem, a mental health issue especially, that's going to carry on to residency training. So you have to, that's why, if you don't give a very clear explanation, that's what they're going to think. And it's going to make your chances to, it's going to make you look bad when you go for an interview, or maybe you're not even going to get an interview. So what I suggest is make absolutely sure that whatever situation that you've been at, it warrants choosing yes. So, for that applicant who had her graduation extended by 3 months, I said, no, you don't need to say that it was extended or interrupted. It's just 3 months, and it is because of your that you were doing your rotations, and the thing is, even her dean's letter did not have anything like it was extended or interrupted, so we felt pretty comfortable about saying it was not extended or interrupted. If you you started med school and now it's like 8 years or 9 years that you're graduating, you clearly have to then choose yes and explain why that is, because you're gonna have to do some explanation as to why someone's med school is training took that much time. And if it was because you wanted to do rotations in the US, then say that, but you're gonna have to provide that explanation. And especially look at your medical school documents if gaps are being mentioned. And that's what I was trying to say, graduating your medical school training just a few months because you took additional rotations is not really extended. So be careful of that. How to address gaps. There's no real way of explaining gaps in the CV. You just have to fill in all the dates and times, and the explanation really for the gaps, like if you took time off for whatever reason, personal reason, family reason, and so forth. That comes in the personal statement, and you're going to have to explain that in the interview. But there's no place in the CV to say, okay, I took time year off for a personal reason or family reason, that kind of a thing. This is all self-explanatory, nothing much here. Okay, let's go to publications. So one question was, if I have over 20 publications, can I list all of them? Now that's very tricky. Because it all depends on what kind of a specialty that you're applying for. I've seen some applications where, some folks were doing clinical research, like a PhD or master's program. And what happened is that they did that for like 4 or 5 years. So they had like bunch of publications, 20, 25 publications, but a lot of them were related to basic like molecular biology. And so you wonder, what is a clinical residency training program? How are they going to look at someone who's had like so much basic science experience? Because certainly during residency training, you're not going to be able to get time to do all those kind of basic science research. And so what happens is, so for this kind of a situation, I would say if you have 20 publications, I mean, you can certainly list all of them, especially if they are clinically relevant and relevant to the specialty that you're trying to look for. Oops, hang on. The specialty that you're trying to apply to. And in some situations, I've asked people to cut down the number of publications just so that it looks more pertinent to someone who wants to pursue clinical training. So if you have like 20 publications, 5 have some clinical implications, 15 have some, a lot of basic science background, then I would have them like cut down those basic science publications as much as they can, because it's not relevant to clinical residency training, and it may cause more confusion in the mind of the program director, and it'll be much more difficult for you to explain why you're making the move from basic science to clinical residency training. So this is a little bit more, case by case basis of what publications need to be listed. If it's all clinically relevant, it's all like cardiovascular research, and this person's applying to general medicine, then go for it. But if it's like very like receptor level or molecular level, and if you're applying for like a community hospital, you're gonna have to do a better job explaining why you want to pursue the training in a clinical, clinical environment. Authors, make sure you include all the author names, not just et al. The reason is because sometimes there might be some author there that your program director or the faculty who's reviewing your application may know. And so it's a nice way to have a connection. You don't have the ability to bold your name or and so forth. So the best way to highlight your name among the list of authors is to capitalize your name. So that way among if there are like 10 authors, I'll know exactly, are you the first author, where exactly are you in that list? Because no one's gonna have time to like go through all the 10 names and find out where you're at. So help the program director capitalize your name, and the way it says last name and first initial. So that's what I've kind of done here. Publication name, don't abbreviate, give the entire name of the journal, because some folks may not be familiar with the abbreviated form name of the journals. So all that information is very self-explanatory. I do want to say that you cannot list a paper if you haven't submitted it yet to a journal. And because, if you look at this, I mean, the most you can do is submit it. So at least so what I'm trying to say is that when you're pursuing research experience for to prepare for residency, at least get it to the point, complete the draft and have it submitted so that you can choose that you have submitted this paper to a journal, and be as accurate as you can be on the date of submission. So for example, if you're filling out this application a month before ERAS opens, and that time it was submitted, but later on it gets provisionally accepted. Make sure you update your the status of the publication just before ERAS opens, so that you're giving the program the most accurate information. This is all self-explanatory. I don't have much here to say. Okay, again, for poster presentations, again, I've seen some applications where, people would describe a poster that they presented as a requirement of that rotation, but that's not what this is. This is a research poster presentation, a poster presentation at a research conference. Even if it's within your med school or institution, if it's like, a research day or med student research day, that's still valid. But just because you were required to do this poster presentation as part of your rotation, that doesn't qualify as research poster presentation. So just be careful. Don't try to add stuff to your CV just to make it look bigger and better, because we have to be very truthful and accurate when we're presenting all our experiences here. Oral presentation, the same thing. And well, that's pretty much it. Okay, so that's what I have to talk about the ERAS CV. And that PDF that I had, I'm happy to post it online, and then everyone can review that again in detail. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have at this time.
Hello, Dr. Agarwal. Anjali.
Okay.
I'm a medical graduate. I graduated in January 2020, and last year, from April to August, I was involved in a clinical plasma therapy trial in Mumbai, in India. So I had actually applied last year, but I had listed this work experience of mine under my this experience of mine under the work experience in ERAS CV. Do you think I should have I can post it under the research experience, because since it was a research about convalescent plasma therapy trial that was being done by the Indian Council of Medical Research in India.
Yeah. So you're right. That makes it a little bit. It looks like it could go up both either under work or research. I would suggest putting it under research experience, because the nature of the work is clinical research. So and it seems like the descriptions will be more about your role in this clinical research trial. Maybe publications will come out of it. So yeah, I would suggest putting it under research experience. And if you
Okay.
have a little bit more active role, if you're doing a little bit more, part recruiting, recruiting participants and so forth, I really think you can, like I said, maybe 2 to 3 sentences. I think you can maybe add another line or another sentence or two if you have more of a role in that research work.
Okay. So yeah, I was actually involved in recruiting the donors and also the monitoring of patients to some extent. So that's why last time I was a little reluctant in putting it as a research experience. But I don't know if they're going to publish any paper anytime soon, because I was involved in 2 studies actually. So one study has been stopped because they didn't get any positive results, and the other study is still going on, but I'm not a part of it now because I kind of left that when I had to go to the US to do my rotations. So that's why I kind of listed it under my work experience and not research experience, because I was not sure if they were going to publish the results or not.
Yeah. But the nature of the nature of the work and the experience is research. So just go for research experience. I think that's fine. Work experience is mainly more clinical based. Like there were some discussions about some posts I was reading about people doing other kind of work, like say
Mm-hmm.
working in like medical communications or medical writing and that kind of stuff. That would be more of work experience. You can't put that as research. I highly suggest keeping it as research experience. Another reason is because you know it's when a program director looks at, okay, how much clinical experience, research, volunteer experience you have, you want to try to have something on the research experience side also. So that'll be a very nice thing to add to your research experience.
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. There's one question here. Sorry, didn't see that. I would wanted to know if we should include languages we are not native or fluent in. Um, so what I've seen is this. Some applications would have, I would say like Spanish, and it would be mentioned as basic Spanish. But you know, it's I don't really feel that's helpful, because if if you don't have the ability to speak a language in order to communicate with the patient, I really don't see why that even needs to be mentioned. I mean, someone who has basic knowledge of Spanish, I truly believe cannot have a a medical conversation with a Spanish speaking patient. So I have seen applications like that. I always wonder about how that applicant would do if truly asked by a program director, okay, talk to me about your Spanish, or they started speaking in Spanish and this person is not able to understand, then that's very embarrassing. I've seen it both ways. I would suggest at least, at least if you can get to that level of good for language besides English, I think it's worth adding. But if it's like basic, what was the other? There was one more category. There were a couple of categories. Just see here very quickly. Just a sec. Okay, let's see. Yeah, basic fare. That can be left out. If you feel your language skill, your ability to communicate in a language is at least good, I say put that in ERAS. If not, just leave it out. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you very much. And if you still have any questions, you can certainly find me on the Facebook group. And I'm just adding that link here. If you haven't joined it, you can certainly join in there. And I keep track of all the posts that are done there, and you can certainly post a question there just for everyone's benefit. Thank you very much, and all the best to you.